Okay, everyone, we're going to get started. You got a couple military guys here on the line, and we like to start on time. So this will be recorded. So anybody who registered will get a recorded link to this webinar. So let me get started. I want to introduce you to Adam Weiner. Adam spent 14 years in leadership roles as a Navy SEAL, where he attained the rank of lieutenant commander. Among other assignments, he served as a platoon commander at SEAL Delivery Vehicle Team 1, operations officer of SEAL Team 1, strategic planner at Special Operations Command, and executive officer of SEAL Team 7. He was awarded the Bronze Star with Valor while serving as a mission commander on a sensitive operation. After the Navy, Adam brought his leadership to the automotive industry and finance. At General Motors, he was the business manager for the vice president of engineering, where he served a chief of staff function across 8 executive directors while managing a $3.5 billion budget. At AIG, he was a divisional vice president, where he consulted with hundreds of financial advisors on retirement solutions. In 2017, he started Hatmata LLC to teach leadership, team building, and character as an executive coach and speaker. He enjoys giving his message to as many people as possible and does keynotes around the country. In March of 2017, the governor of Michigan appointed him to the Veterans Facilities Board of Managers, where he is currently serving a 3-year term. In 2018, he was invited to sit on the board for the Michigan Jewish Action Council. MJAC is a nonprofit group that leads an effort to cultivate critical thinking and catalyze action through speaker events. Adam is a proud graduate of the United States Naval Academy. He's happily married with 3 great children. Adam, welcome.
Hey, thank you very much, Tom. Good morning to you. Thank you for that gracious introduction. And good morning to everybody out there in webinar land. You know, I enjoy working with folks like Tom that are known to partner with individuals and teams committed to continual development. I step in and I help with how those individual and teams approach their endeavors, how they think, prioritize, and hold themselves accountable on their journey for greatness. The name of my program today is Journey Greatly. Stay with me to the end. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. And additionally, you'll have the opportunity to learn more about some of my special offers for you today. Anybody who becomes a Navy SEAL must successfully make it through a lot of training. One of the 5-day blocks of training within all of that training is called Hell Weeks. 5 days and nights. There is no sleeping. My class started those 5 days with 100 students, and we finished those 5 days with 36. Why? I'm going to answer that question and more today, focusing on some key values that can make a world of difference in our lives. But for me to convey that to you and accomplish that, I need to ask 3 things of you. The first one is to have an open mind. Be a sponge, take it in. The second is simply to be honest with yourself. And lastly, and sadly, probably the most difficult one, is eliminate all the distractions. If you're focused on emailing or texting and you hear me in the background, you will miss the spirit of my points. Multitasking is a myth, and you might be doing well, and a lot of the people that I work with, people and teams, they're doing good also. Trust me, I bring them to great. A small change over time can make a massive difference. So understand before you start emailing or texting, the opportunity cost that you incur is going to be great. Here's where we're driving you today. I'm going to start out, I always start with the why, tell you what, tell you how, and in basic terms, I'm going to convey some points to you in story, but not just about my life. It's not about me today, it's about you. So I'm going to take some hypothetical scenarios, knowing what I know to some extent about your world, and apply these concepts for you. It's just that simple. I'll leave you with a simple takeaway. If I do my job and you're paying attention, you just might leave here amazed. Everything that I talk about stems from the spirit of my company, Hegna, which is the Hebrew word for perseverance. And a lot of people think, yeah, that makes sense. It takes a lot of mental and physical perseverance to be a SEAL. And while that's true, it means so much more to me than just that. I wake up every day knowing life presents its chaos, its randomness, and I'm left to make decisions. Life's hard. It owes me nothing. I've got to earn anything that I want. Just to be good is difficult. To live with purpose, act on values, and journey greatly, I must persevere. And that's what Hegna means to me. So I'm going to take this concept today, and at a very basic level, the reason why I'm here is to help inspire courageous decisions in your life. Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "Courage charms us because it indicates that a man loves an idea better than all things in this world, that he's thinking neither of his bed, nor his dinner, nor his money, but will venture all to put in act the invisible thought of his mind." Let's break that down for a second. Will venture all, put yourself out there, to put in act, we do live in a physical world, the invisible thought of your mind. Well, what's that? Courage is not some magical DNA that only some people are born with. It's a decision. On that invisible thought in your mind, you're acting on your values. That's what it is. The reason why it's rare and so important is because it's not just your everyday, easygoing, this or that type deal, but rather it presents itself when it's hard. And sometimes those are the most critical decisions in the seams between good and greatness. Courage is a decision to act on your values when it's hard. It happens to be rare, but it doesn't have to be. Today, I'm going to talk about 3 values with you. These aren't the most important values in the world, and this is not a recipe to necessarily change everything, but rather, after being thoughtful about what has helped me and what I think will help you, we're going to talk about being bold without certainty, persevering, specifically one step at a time, and humility. How thoughtful humility can lead to some of your biggest breakthroughs. How am I going to help inspire courageous decisions in your life? By illustrating how deciding to act on certain values over time leads to a great journey. So let's dive in. First story is being bold, Naval Academy bound, and want to be a frogman. My brother's 4 years older than me, one sibling, no others. And when I was a freshman in high school, I watched him take off to college. Kind of a big deal, left the house. And I thought, wow, this is forthcoming of what I'm going to have to do in 4 years. So I went to the library. I wanted to dive in, learn about college. What are my options? Because it's a big deal. And I came across the Naval Academy. Either I was in the wrong place or it was in the wrong place, and it was neither. Yeah, the Naval Academy is a place you get a college education, but I learned that it was so much more. That it is a leadership laboratory, and those that graduate end up getting commissioned as officers in the Navy or Marine Corps. I was thoughtful about it, and in short, really decided that's what I wanted to do. But there was a problem. The standard to get into that place was much higher than where I was, let's say, academically speaking, as a freshman. And I wondered to myself, could I get there in time? It was a finite period of time. You know, people apply their junior year of high school, so we're talking a couple of years here. And there'd be a lot of hard work that would go into that. And that would be a pretty big undertaking. That is a decision point, and this is the part that I want to highlight to you today. I had to be very thoughtful right then and there and make a decision to say, if you're going to do this, then you're all in. Otherwise, it is a waste of your time. And I decided, you know what? It's unlikely I'd get in, but it's worth trying. That the journey's worth it. So I did, and off I went, and I doubled down. And my junior year of high school, every applicant to the Naval Academy gets an interview with someone that's called a blue and gold officer. They're essentially the missions officer. It's a nice process where an applicant gets someone to put, eyes on the individual. So you're more than just a name on a piece of paper. So I was happy about that. I was nervous for it. The gentleman comes to my house. My parents are there. We conduct the interview. And at the end, there was all these platitudes, and I was excited about that. And of course, there was a but, right? Adam, you're a great young man. I'm excited to see what you're going to go out and do. But you just don't have the grades. You don't have the test scores. You've got a lot going on, and I wouldn't want to see you waste your time. It's just very unlikely that you'd be accepted. And he didn't say it in a rude way. That made it all that much more crushing. He cared about me. He didn't want me to waste my time. That's another decision point, right? Anybody on all of our endeavors, we come up against these hurdles. And this early in my junior year, there was a lot going on. It's kind of like being done with a final exam. I could have dumped that and moved on. But it was just that important to me, and I really wanted it. And said, you know what? Small chance, it's worth it. I'll keep pushing. And the deal was, what's more important? My time or the fact that I wanted to pursue something that I felt that was worth it? Knowing that the journey truly makes it worth it. Well, as it turned out, I was not accepted out of high school. He was right. But there was an interesting kind of consolation prize. So I was given the opportunity to attend a boarding school, but I had to reapply. And there was no guarantee that I'd get in, albeit the odds were tremendously better at that point. But wow, they said no to me. I left it all on the field. And now there's this, and this is still not even a guarantee. And remember the context of the time. I'm 18 years old. I've got friends, they're heading off to college. I'm going to pass on college? Yeah, to go to the Naval Academy, not to go to a boarding school. But I had to sit back. Things don't always work out on your timeline. If you really want something, you got to dig deep. And you better believe at 18 years old, that was a pretty big decision to make. And wouldn't you know it, about 5 years after I made that decision, I did graduate. Maybe not such a waste of my time. You've got to have the courage to be bold. It's all about making the decision in the approach. And then everything will come after that. And just to keep on this thread a little bit, I'm a young midshipman at the Naval Academy, the mighty class of 2001. Everyone's going to do something. 16 individuals will go off to be Navy SEALs. And boy, did I like that. I wanted that, but it almost seemed inconceivable. My cross-country frame, my background, come on. And let alone, I'm in pretty great company. All these other mids around me, midshipmen, about 850 men in my class, and there's 16 spots. And I don't know exactly how many wanted it, but it was in the hundreds. Now that number dwindled throughout the years. And remember, I'm not the natural student, and it's a 4-year program at the Naval Academy, so I better pass my classes. 5-year program's called failing at that place. Well, that was a decision point. Was I really going to invest in doing what was necessary to prepare to even have a shot at being a SEAL, knowing how much time it would take? And I decided that I would, that it was worth it. And I would try to be as efficient with my time as possible. Doing calisthenics 3 days a week in the morning before a 7 a.m. formation. Rumor is SEALs got to swim. Heavy academic load, 19 credits was my lightest load. I typically get maybe 1 class period off. I try to get the 5th class period. It comes right after lunch. And why did I do that? Because the pool was open for swim hours then. Just what everybody wants to do right after a heavy lunch is go swim laps. In the evenings, 8 to midnight was study hour. And you better believe I had to study. But I would take about an hour to an hour and a half, about 3 days a week to make my way to the weight room, and move some weight around, trying to get bigger, stronger, do what's necessary, following a goal that I had set for myself. Just illustrating to you that there's things that you obviously have to do, but the step up front is to be bold. Now, senior year, Naval Academy, exciting time. Service selection is a great time. Everyone finds out what it is that they were selected to do. A lot of tradition at a place like the Academy. If you become a Marine, you get your head shaved. If you become one that's selected a SEAL, well, they shave everything to include your eyebrows, and the transformation to a frogman was underway, though not complete. Don't let the odds deter you. Be bold to go for what you want. And that takes courage to do what it takes in the face of uncertainty. There's no guarantees you'll get there, but you're never going to get there if you don't take yourself seriously in the very beginning in that approach. So how might this apply in your world? Let's say, for example, maybe this is a second career for you. Maybe you're just getting started. This is a hypothetical, right? So I'm going to say Joe used to be an engineer, businessman, made the decision to jump, financial advisor, insurance agent, got your own business. You might be feeling a little bit behind. And at some point, you just jump up and make the proclamation. Enough already. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be top of the table eligible. And your numbers up to this point or your experience wouldn't lend itself to that, but you're serious about it. Now, how do most people respond to you? Well, most people, and they're good people, they're not evil, mean, trying to knock you off what you're going for. They're going to say, hey, it's good to have goals, Joe, but that's unreasonable. We just need to understand that that's the herd, that will be out there. And we're human. We gain strength from our friends and our family. So that stuff is relevant. It's not something that is easy to simply ignore. Maybe there's a little bit more serious-minded group around you. They might even come to you and say, look, okay, Joe, you're going to do it, but it's going to be really hard if you want to try to become top of the table eligible. I call that motto, master of the obvious, but at least they took you seriously. The point here is, what does it take to be in that elite few? What is the approach? How are those people going to respond to all of this? And that is a decision for you, because trust me, you've heard it or you will hear it if you haven't already. And it's hard. The elite few, unemotionally and focused. I know what it takes, and I will do that. Everyone focuses on the recipe after the fact. What does it take? What does it take? What does it take? And that is not irrelevant. And my point to you today is getting out in front of it with your mindset and how you approach it. And your body will follow. You cannot let the odds deter you in lofty goals. You've got to be bold to go for what you want. And it takes courage, because there are no guarantees that whatever your goal is, you will achieve it. And you're always thinking in terms of opportunity cost. My guarantee to you today is not necessarily that you will achieve what you're going for, but rather that you will not regret going for it. I live in the real world. I can't guarantee results. But what I can say is that you'll do better than any other alternative approach with this mentality. And you won't regret it. It'll be worth it. So how about getting back to that Hell Week story? Anybody that wants to become a SEAL has got to get through what many consider to be the toughest military training in the world. Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL School. It's 25 weeks long, 3 phases, and much of the attrition is front-loaded. My class started first phase with 150 students. After just 3 weeks, we had lost a third of our class. And that brought us up to the storied crucible called Hell Week, which is the 4th week. Now, as I previously mentioned, Hell Week's 5 days and nights. You're not sleeping. You're organized into boat crews, about 6 to 8 students per boat crew, and you run from station to station. The instructors and their creative and devious minds take you to all these activities to keep you moving throughout those 5 days and nights. To give you a taste of some of these activities, I want to tell you a little bit about log physical training. Your boat crew rolls up to this log, weighs between 150 and 200 pounds, and you start doing aerobics to the tune of the instructor behind their megaphone. Overhead press, sit-ups in the sand, running up a sand berm with that underarm carry, down a sand berm. Every moment of that log physical training is excruciating. Another staple of Hell Week is something we affectionately call surf torture. Pretty simple drill, interlock arms with your fellow students, you walk up to the water's edge, you lie down, you get soaked, your socks are wet, your clothes are wet, you're not changing. The tide recedes, you're left lying there on ice cold, hard packed sand, you're freezing. So a quick recap of a student's physiological state of being during Hell Week. You're exhausted, you're freezing, and sleep deprived. Now, I had mentioned we started with 100 students. We finished with 36. Why? On that very first night, after hours of log physical training and surf torture and some other drills akin to that, found ourselves doing something called whistle drills. Pretty simple deal. Instructor blows a whistle, students low crawl to their boots. Not the most pleasant thing to be doing, but relative to the log physical training and the surf torture, it's better. And something interesting happened. First night, we had our first quitter, and after the first guy rang the bell, it's like it never stopped ringing. It was a flood of quitters. Why? Well, I can tell you what was going through my head. The fact that whistle drills was somewhat of a mindless activity, my mind started to catch up with me. I could think, I could project, where am I going, how am I feeling, and what the heck is going on here? And it was a horrible feeling because I could not see 4 days down the road. And as I was watching those guys ring the bell, I'm thinking, well, they're the smart ones. They're getting dibs on the hot tub. All the hot water is going to be gone by the time I get there because there's no way this is happening. It's just not humanly possible. I can't see it. And the point is that those individuals, I think, didn't quit because of where they were at. They quit because of what they couldn't see 4 days down the road. You just don't know. But it's not human nature to just hop in a car and drive and not know where you're going. You exit, you get out of that situation. I knew at that moment I had to re-engineer the way I was thinking. That was a conscious decision that I had to make to put myself in the right frame of mind and have the courage to act on my value of perseverance, that I promised I wouldn't quit, and I knew my mind was in a bad place. And what I did was simply tell myself, look, you've got to forget about those 4 days. How about just being here when the sun comes up, and we'll figure it out from there. And I was there, and I made it to breakfast, and at breakfast I was feeling good about myself. I got this thing. And then I started thinking about where I was going, and I looked all the way down the 3.5 days, and my mind went straight back to the gutter. It didn't seem reasonable. And I said, you can't think about that. You simply got to focus on just get to lunch and then figure it out. And at lunch to dinner and so forth throughout the course of the week. So what I simply did in functional terms was take a finish line that was too far away and move it closer to something that I could visualize. And what that does psychologically is it takes that negative energy and anxiety and it transitions into positive energy and focus on right what you're doing right at that time, enabling you to successfully get through it. It's not easy to do. You essentially have to fight your human nature of wanting to know where you're driving and say, I have the courage to forget about tomorrow and I'll give everything for today. How might this concept have application in your world. You're trying to be the complete advisor, top of the table eligible, grow your production X percentage. There's a lot you've got to do. For starters, you better learn your craft. You're going to have to build a network. You better stay connected with that network. Ultimately, you're trying to fill that calendar with productive time. Well, that's a lot for you to do all that stuff. And it starts to become a scramble and your head's spinning. You start to think, I just got to get it all done. And I'm here to talk about perseverance in your world to a standard. Not just get it all done. Are you asking yourself the right questions? Yeah, you know what you're talking about, but you do it concisely. Sure, you've got some relationships, but are they good relationships? And yeah, maybe you send a birthday card, which is nice, but it's typed, or at the end of the day, you know, is this really something that's going to resonate? Or is it just another piece that goes into the recycle bin and really doesn't hit their conscience? Do you have the right touch? You're going to show people how busy you are. Everybody's busy in 2018. Are you making the most of your time? There's a standard that we're going for, not just everything. And you've got to hold yourself to a standard. If I do not do those things to that standard, then I won't grow my production X percentage. I will not become top of the table eligible. It's good to have goals, but you've got to back it up. And you've got to be honest with yourself. I recommend that to have standards of greatness in today's day and age, you have got to work on growing things in building blocks, one step at a time. Yeah, you're doing a lot of other things, but you really need to be able to focus and hold yourself to a standard, and you decide the order of things. So maybe you start with your craft and everything part and parcel to it, and you start building out a network. That's not just meeting people. Maybe there's some way to differentiate yourself, that you're involved in the community. That will lend itself to meeting all sorts of different people. But you've got to be pretty thoughtful about that, because this is the business of working with folks. So if you're not meeting folks, you're not doing business. And ultimately, after you meet these people, it ain't over. Everybody's busy in their own life. You're forgotten. What are you doing to stay connected? Tell me that that is not a critical component of part of building your network, is meaningful connections, relationship deposits. One thing at a time, to a standard, and ultimately you will fill your calendar with meaningful work. But it does take time. When you're building a business, you have a decision to make. You can run around and get everything done, or you can focus on achieving the right standard before moving on. It's not easy to do. Everybody wants to get it all done. People will question you and say, why haven't you done this yet? It's hard. Sometimes you just got to line stuff up like dominoes in an order that makes sense and has a reason, in a certain order, and knock them down one at a time. And you don't know how it's all going to end up. But it takes that level of effort for each item to reach that standard. Have the courage to prioritize greatness over completion. That is the standard that you're going for. Now, this next value I want to talk about, humility. I believe it'll lead to our greatest breakthroughs, that sometimes we miss what's obvious. In this story, I'm talking about a time when I was a little bit more senior. I was a lieutenant commander. I was the operations officer at a SEAL team. And ops at any military command is very busy. It's a gauntlet. It's thankless. Most people can just kind of drown in the workload. At a SEAL team, for an operations officer, You've got your platoons, you got to make sure that they're where they need to be for training. They've got all the logistical support to take care of their gear and get their proper rest and safety's in place. They've got the right equipment. And ultimately, you're preparing these guys to deploy into harm's way. And the different platoons many times go to different places. That was the case when I was the operations officer. So you need to marry up the right training with certain deployment requirements as it relates to the different missions in that area. And it's a lot. Obviously, there's a lot at stake. So as the operations officer, you have that hanging over you. And it keeps you busy, to say the least. You're also in charge of a department. You've got people working for you. You've got your meeting schedule. You've got multiple phones and email accounts with all the different classifications, and there's enough stuff to drown you out. And I try to work to the standard that we just talked about. And I was racing to check off all these boxes, but to a standard. Now, I happened to work for a commanding officer at the time that had a different standard than mine. It was higher. I started to learn what the word insatiable meant. Well, great individual, we all have our masters. I thought I was done with something and I had to go back and do it again. And my wife watched me get up earlier, stay up later, wither away. And I gotta be honest, by the time that this tour was over, there was a euphoric feeling. I wasn't quite sure there'd be anything left of me at the end. I don't want to be overly dramatic here, but I might have been seeing some rainbows and the water was falling. And yes, it quickly wore off. And eventually I got to thinking, what would those working for me say about my leadership? And if all they said was what I did, but not what I did for them, I needed to change my ways. This is relevant for me because I pride myself on my leadership. And things that I did and that I know that were very apparent as platoon commander, I had to be honest with myself and recognize that they had slipped as I got senior. That's a very, very tough pill to swallow. You talk about eating your humble pie. For me to look in the mirror and say to myself as I advance into the position of executive officer, that what I care about, what I want to achieve greatness in, I didn't hit that standard. That I got a lot of stuff done, but as it relates to investing in people, uplifting people in true leadership, there was so much more I could do. So then the point is, what are you going to do about it? I've got a decision to make. I'm moving into this new job, executive officer in charge of 300 people, half of which are SEALs, 6 department heads, they all report up to you. And you realize this, what do you do about it? Because I didn't just want to get to know folks, I wanted to make a difference. Meaning, if I were going to talk to them, I wanted to get below the surface of the iceberg, not just pass them in the halls. You got to remember, as the executive officer, you're not the most popular guy, you're kind of the Gestapo. People aren't going out of their way to talk to you. So I made a conscious decision going into that tour that up front, I would discipline 3 days a week, 30 minutes at a pop to do individual counseling sessions. So I could get below the surface of the iceberg. That people thought they were just coming in to talk about work, but that the reality was that I really wanted to get to know them. That the point of that was for me to improve, and where I needed my biggest improvement was to reach everyone and build a meaningful relationship. And I did this, and I built relationships, and I got to know people much better, one at a time, and it took time. And here's how it played out. In one case, this young man, amazing story, orphaned as a child, never knew his biological parents, built a relationship with them through some crazy circumstances. His biological mother got a read on where he was and got his contact information. And this young man starts to receive voicemails and emails. And he shared it with me. And it was heartbreaking to hear the story. He's a young SEAL officer, tremendous, accomplished young man in his young 20s in dealing with this. Now, you got to understand, I'm resourced as the executive officer. I've got the doctors, the psychologists, and all that stuff to help with issues. But here's the thing. He just wanted to know my opinion. There was a relationship there, and I had promised myself that I would be present. And part of that is truly stepping up and being present for people. So I just was honest with him. He said, hey, what do you think? And I said, look, I can't empathize with you, but I can tell that you're hurting. I can only imagine that your biological mother is hurting. And to be fair to the current situation, she's reaching out to you. Maybe you hold the keys to unlock a lot of this pain. I don't know. But think about it and keep me posted. He came by my office a week later. He told me that he had just gotten off a call the previous night with his biological mother. He kind of lowered his head, stopped talking, and he looked at me. He lifted up his head and he said, thank you. And he left. He shared that story with his platoon, and the platoon kind of shared it with other platoons. And the point of it was, this was no tidal wave that went through that place, but I had built relationships with folks, and people knew. And it was interesting because earlier in my career, you had to outshoot, do more push-ups than the guys, and you earned all that respect. But as a leader, altruism, the right action that produces the greatest benefit to others. People don't care how much you know. They just want you to show them how much you care. And when I talked, the guys listened. And the point is, how did I get to this place? That what I care about, what I wanted to achieve a higher standard in my life, required me to eat a piece of that humble pie. That was the catalyst, that was the approach and the turning point to make meaningful differences on a leadership front. Have the humility to look beyond the surface of things and seek out your shortcomings. Change is never easy. You have to press forward with courage to try a new approach. And the point is that was a breakthrough for me. That it required that humility to break through on what I cared about. It's not about me today, it's about you. How does this have an application maybe in your life as you approach things? Let's say you've been doing this for a little while and you've studied your products and you know the strategies and you've done the market analysis and you finalized your approach and you sit back and marvel. You know so much, right? You've gotten it all done. When reviewing your business, what else might you consider? How about what kind of a business are you in? A relationship business, right? Why would somebody choose you and feel compelled to refer you? Do you ask yourself this question? Because at the end of the day, it's not a secret. The power of referral is the growth of your business. They got to choose you first, and then they got to be compelled to refer you. Well, what are the attributes that might lead to that? A lot of people will try to bend what they're doing to answer this question. And you cannot allow yourself to do that. You've got to have the integrity to just be honest with what you believe are the values to answer that question and be honest about what it is that you are doing. That is a decision for you and a turning point potentially. And you answer the question. Yeah, people want to work with me because I have a tailored and personal approach for exactly what they need. And I tell it to them right up front. In the military, we would say bottom line up front to people, the bluff. and then give them the backstory after that. But respect their time and go right to what they need and have done your homework on whoever it is that you're talking to. How about that you're trustworthy? That you don't start off everything you're talking about with some superlative adjective like it's the best and the greatest and wow, that's just so believable. Everything this guy talks about is always the best. Just be normal. Be believable. Have some humility. You're going to make mistakes. Own it. How about that you care about what's important in life? That people look at you as someone that's got healthy priorities. That it's not all about work. And you know this when you're talking to these people. And who knows if they're even in a place to have these conversations with you, and how would you know if you didn't ask the questions? How about that you're pleasant to be around? That you can smile and maybe even crack a joke, laugh at theirs. Who do people want to be around? Isn't that what we're talking about? It's healthy to grow your business, to want to grow your business, but do understand that transactional business incentives will threaten your personable focus. It takes courage to prioritize the relationship over the sale. So very simple takeaway for you today. These are not the 3 most important things that are out there, but rather this is a webinar and I wanted to give you a taste of how you can approach things. And as it relates to boldness, perseverance, and humility, any one of them might be the puzzle piece that you need, all 3 of them, or this is validating because you're already doing it. But the point is identify your values and ensure you're honest with your approach on how you go about it. Because you know life presents its chaos and you're left to make decisions. That you have to earn what you get. And it's hard to be good, to live with purpose, act on your values, and journey greatly. You must persevere to make courageous decisions. Because that's all being courageous is. It's simply a decision. And if you do this, I'd love nothing more than for you to contact me at my website and share it with me so together we can appreciate what it means to truly have Hatmadah in our lives. I really appreciate everyone's attention that's been with us and still with us this far, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, and I would remind you to stay with us to the end of the questions so you've got an opportunity to hear about the special offers that I have for you today.
Hey, Adam, thank you so much. Hey, if you've got questions, just type them in the chat box, and I'll read them to Adam. Just type them on in there, and I'll be happy to relay the questions. And why don't you tell us how they can get a hold of you? Like if they have a question, and so we have some people who are dialed in. Is there a place that you can get a hold of you?
Yeah, they can contact me. If they go to my website, it's Hatmadah, HATMADA.us. My contact information is posted there. My email address is my first name, Adam, at Hatmadah.us, and it's got my phone number posted there as well.
Perfect. Bob Benedict says, thanks for your service. Your last page was too quick. Can you put it up again?
I think I can, Bob.
All right, well, that's all the questions for now. So, Adam, why don't you wrap it up?
Sure thing. Yeah, I just want to remind folks out there in webinar land and anybody that's listening in on the recording that I work with individuals and teams committed to that continual development. I help them with their approach to endeavors as it relates to how they think, prioritize, and hold themselves accountable. Now, I do this in a number of different ways, but my main strategy leverages the pillars to journey greatly: rise, focus, and persist. And additionally, I share the architecture behind a mindset that leads to action. Though we did not address these ideas today, you can learn more about them through my programming. And the first step is to sign up for my free monthly newsletter at the website hotmada.us. And for those that do, you will also receive one free individualized consult to discuss coaching and speaking opportunities for you or your team. And having said all that, and trying to be respectful of everybody's time, I would just offer thank you, Tom, for sharing your audience with me. It's an honor. I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody out there that tuned in, and I look forward to working with you on your journey. I wish everybody all the best. That's all I have from here.
Hey, thank you, Adam. There's one last question. Of all the values that have helped you, which one has been the most significant?
Most significant. Yeah, so for me, I mean, that's baked into the spirit of the company, how I described Hotmada. So my belief is that none of us are born good. We're born human, and we've got our minds that can discipline our behavior, but at the end of the day, we've got our human nature, and the instinct of our human nature in a lot of cases doesn't align with what I would call our good values. And just accepting that we are human is not an excuse to behave poorly, but rather to fight to be good. And so I think there is a level of grit and perseverance that we all have to have in our daily lives simply to be good. And because I try to be as good as I can, that my anchor is my perseverance, is to keep trying, and know every day I have to keep trying and keep fighting. And so because of that, it is my favorite value, and it has been my anchor in my life.
Very good. Thank you all for attending, and Adam left you how you can contact him. And so again, thank you all. You'll be sent a recording of this presentation. Thank you.